Alright, last time we were all confused about where to go in this extremely confusing dungeon of Shedunga. It's really easy to get lost. It's impossible not to overemphasize, but I think I've roughly got my bearings. So I've got a nice trail of Ice Atronox letting me know my way. Let's head through this door. This looks like a pit, but it's not. It's just a very precipitous slope that we can roll down or walk down, doesn't matter. I'll just take out this Atronach. Again, having this spell absorption, it's the only spell absorption just enables you just to consistently cast this without having to rest all the time. It's magic resistance and spell absorption, all that is way overpowered. In Oblivion is overpowered, Morrowind overpowered, Daggerfall and definitely overpowered. But without it, the game fighting these guys, it's still possible, because you can at this stage, if you're a warrior class, if you start having a long blade or axe skill or blunt weapon skill of around 70 and reasonable agility, you can just take these guys out hand to hand easily as well. You don't need all these spells. But it's nice to have a nice backup plan. I mean, we're not quite at end game kind of gear here. We've only really got mainly steel, half steel armor and half Daedric armor. And of course, Daedric, that is end game gear, and mithril stuff, that's sort of mid game. I'd say mid to late game gear. Because once you start enchanting everything, or let's just take out this Atronach, he's just sitting there, doesn't seem to have noticed me. Seems quite happy to take it. And these guys are tough, they take quite a few of these shots. Maybe I'll have to readjust my tactics. Yeah, looks like some sort of secret passage that's already been opened. Sometimes the monsters do that. But the gear that I've got at the moment, it's mithril. I think adamantium's a bit better, but it's pretty rare to get. And then from adamantium you can get ebony, and then orcish is actually, I think orcish is better than ebony in this game. And then that's quite rare as well. And the red Daedric stuff is by far the best armor you can get. And once you start joining up with the Mages Guild and getting in with them, then you can start enchanting your weapons. And once you start enchanting your weapons, of course, then it costs a lot. You have soul trapping. You need to buy soul trap gems. You can't just pick them up randomly. They cost about 5,000 gold each. And of course, if your mercantile is a bit bad, then it costs a bit more. But once you can actually soul trap things and soul trap ancient liches and ancient vampires and put them in your soul trap, then you can start having really overpowered gear. But again, you don't really need it. I mean, I'd only say what I said on the character start, that it didn't really matter if you didn't actually progress your character very much. It's completely true, because my character's still is it level 9 or level 10, and he can still cope with these quite easily, although this spell isn't doing very much. Yeah, he can still hold his own against these characters, because these enemies don't actually get harder. He would have great difficulty against ancient vampires or ancient liches and Daedra lords, but you don't get them at this level. You would only get them once you're level 20 or 30 plus. When you're occasionally faced with an ancient vampire, then yeah, it's tough, but once you actually get higher leveled, you'll face them all the time, and it kind of negates the reason why you level up in the first place. It's a lot easier just to collect high level gear, be a fairly low level character like I am, and just generally be overpowered. Oh, look at this. 1, 2, 3, lots and lots of flesh Atronachs after me. I wonder whether this is because they are programmed. Sometimes you will get enemies approaching you, or enemies appearing every 30-minute in-game minutes. So every 30 minutes that passes in the game when you're in the dungeon, you get enemies chasing after you, and that kind of adds to the fear factor that you get. Or it's not very scary, but it kind of makes the game a little bit more unpredictable. It's not like in newer games where you can clear a dungeon and feel safe. You never feel safe because there's always monsters coming after you. This especially happens in the later game when the storyline progresses, and then you get lots of enemies coming after you all the time until the game finishes, until you finish the main quest. But we're not there yet. We're still, I would say, pretty much halfway through the game now, halfway through the main quest. Of course, talking about the entire game, we've still got loads of the game left to run. We've got, I mean, I'm not going to play through it, but we've got tons of Mages Guild quests, loads of Fighters Guild quests. There's particular quests for each of the temples, the general temple quest line. So for Kirinith there's one, for Mara there's another quest, and there's also special Knights quests. If you join the Knights of the Dragon, for instance, then there's a lot of quests for them. And there's a Dark Brotherhood as well. I've never joined them. And there's a Thieves Guild as well. That's another load of quests. There are Merchants quests, basically, or not really a Merchants Guild, but just a lot of quests you get from asking merchants for work. And there are Commoners quests, which you just get from asking normal commoners and innkeeps for work. And there are Nobles quests, which you get from speaking to people in Castle Daggerfall, Castle Sentinel, and Castle Wayrest, or one of the palaces. All those nobles swanning around, you normally get quests. And there's a whole set of quests attached to each of them. There are, you know, I haven't finished yet speaking about the quests, because there are also a vampire. There's a vampire quest line, I think, and it depends on where you actually get bitten, which quests you get. Oh, here we are. We are finally in the throne room. This is the throne room, and it has your own little creatures to try and slaughter. So let's just get rid of these flesh Atronachs. There's one more. Yeah, they're quite easy to take off with a sword. So this is nice. Look at it. This is the throne room where Nilfgaard, the mother of the former King of Daggerfall, Lysandus, has gone mad. And that little shadow over there, I think that's her. Yep, that is her. And she looks very well. Hello, Nilfgaard. Well met, stranger. So we can just ask her random stuff. We can ask her where the Temple of Akatosh is, but she doesn't really tell you very much. So that's Nilfgaard. Does she tell you about things? No, so you can't actually ask her about the, not a good time to be unemployed, but yeah, you can't actually ask her about the unicorn horn, so it looks like you're going to have to find it yourself. If you have done the, if you've asked Queen Akubai, the Queen of Daggerfall, about her quest, which is the concern for Nilfgaard, she will babble on and prove that she is actually still quite mad, and she'll give you the code shut up to get through this door, and you click on that lich, that, well, it's not really a lich, it's more of a skeletal statue, type in shut up, and then you can get in and out of the place really quite easily. So that doorway, I wonder if we should actually just go and open this doorway right now. Let's just save here. Okay, this is the magically held lock that we can't get out of. We click on him, command me, entry shall be yours, and we type in shut up, and the door magically opens, and you can see the exit is just out there, so we can quite quickly get out. A nice and convenient way for us to get in and out of the place, and we don't have to go through that dungeon crawl. Not too long actually. What did it take me? It took me about a quarter of an hour to crawl through the dungeon with a walkthrough, knowing where I was going. But of course, if you didn't know, I presume that you would eventually give up out of frustration, because it's that kind of game which where it gets really frustrating. You just get weighed down with where to go. But yeah, we need to come back here for, I think there's the Concern for Nafalgar quest, there's this quest, and there is also one more quest, which is the quest for the Mantella Crux quest, which is right at the end, so it's worth having that code. Well, let's go and pick up that unicorn horn now. It's actually pretty much we're backtracing most of the way that we came, but of course there are it's not too obvious. There's a couple of subtle turnings that we need to take that we didn't take before. But the game is now made a whole lot easier because we've opened that doorway. We can now actually just get out and leave when we want to. We don't have to traipse through this dungeon. And the game could have done a lot more if you could like trace your footsteps or something like that, or perhaps if the game didn't go up and down and have the corridors overlap themselves so much, then the game would be a lot easier. Maybe if they made the cells a bit smaller, then the game could be manageable. Because I recall when I played this once without a walkthrough, without basically a blind playthrough, I came to Shedungut. This was one of the first times I came. This was for the Concern of Nafalgar quest, and I gave up after being in this dungeon for about, I must have spent a good couple of hours, 2-3 hours in this dungeon, and there was no way that I could actually find my way here. It's just quite depressing, and in the end it just makes you not want to explore it, or not really makes you not want to go in any of the dungeons, because you just realise you're just in for a frustrating time. And it's not the enemies, these enemies, this Iron Atronach, we just swiping, yeah, there we go, just swiped him about 5 or 6 times with the sword. He hit me a couple of times, but he barely took off any health. I'm not really worried about the enemies, it's just about getting lost all the time and not being able to find my way back. And so, of course, some of the quests are ridiculous. They're just like, you must find this tiny piece of parchment or a newt scale inside this enormous dungeon. Lots of the dungeons, of course, are the same cells repeated over and over, except there's an occasional blind passage, and so you will kind of think, normally like people navigate, I guess people navigate out of recognition of the passageways, but because the passageways are so similar, you're always thinking that, oh, I've been down this passageway before, because it looks exactly the same. Because how many times has this kind of yellow and grey brick passageway been repeated, and how many times have you seen it in this walkthrough? And occasionally, yeah, there's some vines from the ceiling, but then, you know, they're not consistent. Anyway, it's just so difficult to find your way. Anyhow, now here's something amazingly difficult about this. As you kind of walk down here, there are actually some secret triggers. I mean, they're not normally the levers that you normally see. The wooden levers we've seen before are really easy. But let's just hold on here and I'll explain that on the next video.